Welcome to this explainer. Today we are breaking down a truly fascinating ancient narrative, Maulana Maududi's classical exegesis of Surah Al-Kahf. We're going to be exploring its rich historical roots, its deep linguistic nuances, and some, frankly, incredible comparative historical parallels that bridge completely different ancient traditions. So if you've ever wanted a clear, structured look at the layers beneath this text, you are absolutely in the right place. Let's dive in. Okay, here's our quick roadmap for today. We'll cover the context of the revelation, the three questions, linguistic insights, the sleepers of the cave, historical records, and we'll wrap up with the parables of wealth. Starting off with Section 1, Context of the Revelation, a deeply high-stakes era. To truly understand this text, we've got to put ourselves in the incredibly high-stakes environment of Mecca, right around 610 AD. Think about it. This is the third stage of prophethood, and it is a period defined by extreme persecution. We're talking about a desperate migration to Abyssinia to escape torture in 615 and a devastating 3-year socioeconomic boycott of the Banu Hashim clan. These early Muslims were under immense, literally life-threatening pressure. Now, as Maulana Maududi points out, the opposition wasn't just physical. Actually, scratch that, it was intense intellectual warfare as well. During this incredibly vulnerable time, the local leadership, the Quraish, were actively hunting for ways to definitively discredit the Prophet's message once and for all. Which brings us to Section 2, the Quraysh's three questions. Testing the Prophet. Prompted by the people of the book, who already had access to older Judeo-Christian scriptures, the Quraysh essentially laid a massive trap. They posed three highly specific historical and mystical questions. The logic was pretty straightforward. An unlettered man in Arabia couldn't possibly know these obscure ancient accounts unless he was truly receiving divine revelation. The text we're examining today is a systematic answer to these exact questions. Moving to Section 3, Linguistic Insights, Finding the Nuances in Arabic. Before we get into the main story, we have to look at the exact words being used here, because they matter. The text explicitly uses the Arabic word kaf to describe a wide, spacious, almost room-like cave. It deliberately avoids using ghar, which means a narrow, tight crevice. This specific linguistic choice right out of the gate explains how a group of youths could actually survive and sleep comfortably in the space for centuries. Another really captivating word is rakim. Maududi notes this fascinating scholarly debate around the term, and he impartially reports the leading theories. It's an incredible historical mystery, really. On one hand, it could mean a physical plaque or inscription placed at the cave to memorialize the youth's names. But on the other hand, some researchers argue it refers to a specific geographic region, which would connect it to the massive ancient rock-carved city of Petra. All right, Section 4, the sleepers of the cave. The central narrative. The commentary highlights this totally fascinating environmental detail regarding the precise geographical orientation of the cave. The text describes how the sun's trajectory perfectly bypassed the opening, so rising on the right and setting on the left, it never actually shone directly inside. This exact positioning kept the air fresh and shielded the youths, physically preserving them in their miraculous centuries-long sleep. Now for Section 5, Comparative Historical Records. Let's look at the global parallels. What makes Maududi's exegesis a real standout is that he doesn't look at the text in a vacuum. He meticulously cross-references the Quranic account with Syrian Christian traditions and established Roman historical timelines. He essentially grounds the parable in real-world documentary evidence. And there are striking, undeniable parallels here. The Islamic account of these persecuted youths, known as Ashab al-Kahf, lines up perfectly with the famous Christian tradition of the 7 sleepers of Ephesus. The exegesis suggests that these aren't competing narratives at all, but rather the exact same historical event, just captured through different theological lenses. The timeline is, frankly, staggering. The exegesis aligns the tyrannical ruler they fled from with the pagan Roman emperor Decius, right around 250 AD. But get this, when they miraculously wake up centuries later, it was during the reign of Emperor Theodosius II. Think about that. They went to sleep in a pagan empire that literally wanted them dead and woke up in a completely Christianized Roman Empire in the ancient city of Ephesus. Finally, Section 6, Parables of Wealth, the material versus the spiritual. The text poses a highly universal question here, one that is honestly just as relevant today as it was centuries ago. How do we balance material success with spiritual grounding? It answers this through a captivating story within a story called the Parable of the Two Gardens. So the parable outlines an interaction between two men. One is blessed with magnificent, heavily yielding vineyards, date palms, a flowing river, the whole shebang. But this immense wealth makes him incredibly arrogant. His companion, however, possesses far less material wealth, but humbly tries to remind his rich friend of the Creator who provided it all in the first place. The text masterfully contrasts their mindsets. The wealthy guy, he's suffering from ultimate hubris, genuinely believing his garden will never perish, and that his riches somehow make him a superior human being. Against this, his companion recognizes that all power and provision depend entirely on a higher will, and when the wealthy man's garden is inevitably destroyed overnight, the total illusion of his self-reliance completely shatters. Maududi highlights this incredibly powerful metaphor used in the text to summarize the core lesson of the parable. It compares worldly life to rain that temporarily makes plants flourish, only for them to inevitably dry up and just blow away in the wind. It perfectly encapsulates the transient, temporary nature of earthly power and material wealth. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a rather provocative thought derived directly from the source material. If the ultimate reality of power and wealth is to eventually turn to dust, what endearing legacy are you building today? It really challenges us to look beyond the immediate distractions of our daily lives and reflect on what truly lasts. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into the history, language, and timeless wisdom of Surah Al-Kahf.